So I'll go ahead and get started here. I'm going to open a new map of the United States. Or actually for this, I'll be opening a new demographic map because we're going to we want to have a map open that we can use to create the layout. So I'm just going to quickly whip up a sample map here. So new demographic map. I'm going to use my US map library. We're going to use an income map, and we will do median household income by census tract. And we'll show the whole US, that's fine. So this is going to create an income map by tract of the whole US. So the next thing I'm going to add to this map is I believe I'm going to add IKEA locations, but really, you can have whatever map you want open to make layouts. This is just me making a general purpose map so that you can see how to make layouts. So I'll go to the map menu and choose layers, click on add layer, go to my C drive in the CC data folder, and I believe mine are in the USA 2021 business location layers. I believe IKEA is under retail, so we'll go ahead and go to retail, and there it is. Okay, so these IKEA locations are on the map. They're just toggled off because of the auto scaling, so I'll go ahead and toggle them on. And the first thing we need to do to open the layout is go to the tools menu, choose reports, and then choose new layout. So you'll see a separate window open with the layout. So you see right now I have an 8.5 by 11 PDF that I'm setting up here, and it's oriented portrait. So the first thing I want to do is I want to change the orientation of this layout, and I want to change the page size because I want to actually have a much larger layout than this. So I'm going to right click anywhere in this gray space and choose properties. I can change my printer here. I'm going to be using my PDF writer. My page size is going to be Arch E, which I believe is 3 feet by 2 feet. I'm going to make it landscape. And if you need to add any margins or anything like that, you can choose here. I'm picking this PDF printer because it has all of my page size options. The page sizes are just determined by what your printer is able to print in. So if you're selecting a PDF writer here, you should see a lot of page sizes be available. So I'll hit OK, and that's going to update. Okay, so as far as adding things to this layout, we're going to primarily be using the drawing toolbar. So you'll see tools down here for drawing shapes, and those work the same as drawing shapes in the map. You can just draw directly on the layout with those. On the far right here, we have two buttons, place map or data view in layout, and place and insert image. So the first thing I'm going to do is choose place map or data view in layout. And then on the layout, I'm going to click and drag where I want this map or data view to go. In my case, I'm using a map. It gives me options for which maps are available to pick. I can also choose an empty frame if I want. So I want to add my tract household income map. We have options here for use actual point sizes, print at a fixed scale, and keep maps aspect ratio. I'm going to talk about these next time I go through this dialog box. For now, I just want to show you what it looks like. Okay, so very easy. That is how to add a map to the layout. I'm going to click on the pointer tool down here at the bottom left, and then right click on this legend and delete it because I will end up having 4 copies of the legend. I'm going to add 4 maps to this layout. First one is right here that I've just added, the whole country, and I'm planning to add 3 more. So I'll add 3 individual city close-ups, and then I'll add some insets to this map so we can see where those cities are. That's the basic setup for this layout. So the maps I will be adding will probably be New York, we'll do Chicago, and we'll do Los Angeles, 3 large cities. So now that I've added that, I'm going to go ahead and add another map to this layout. So the way that adding to the layout works is it adds an image of whatever you're currently looking at on your map. So since I was looking at the whole US, what got added to my layout was literally just the entire US. If I were to zoom to New York, so let's click on the find tool, the US city, and we'll do New York, New York. So if I'm zoomed into New York here, and I go back to my window and then layout, and I choose place map or data view in a layout, I can click and drag, and it's going to add New York instead. Now we have some additional options down here. Use actual point sizes will ensure that the font sizes on the map, so things like the labels, the point sizings for your point styles, anything like that, anything that uses a font size, will remain the same from the map to the final product. So in other words, if you have your label sizes set to 12-point font, they will also appear as 12-point font on your finished PDF. So if you want that to be the case, you could check this box. Print at a fixed scale just ensures that the map scale stays the same. So right now, our map scale, I can't see it, but it will remain the same when we actually add the map here. And keep maps aspect ratio ensures that the dimensions of the map stay the same. So the width and the height. I'm going to uncheck keep map aspect ratio because we want to make sure that the map that we add is fit to the box that I drew, not to just whatever the map currently is. So I'll leave that unchecked and I'll hit OK. And it's going to add the map of New York. I'm once again going to remove the legend. We're only going to keep the fourth legend. So now that I've got two on here, I can go over aligning these. So what we can do, we can click on the pointer tool. You can click and drag to highlight the items that you want to have selected. And then you can use the alignment tools to align these maps. And you can align any items here. So if you have like titles or shapes that you've drawn, anything like that, you can align with these tools. So we can do things like align to the left edge, align to right edge. I think we want to align to top in this case. So this is going to align the tops of the two maps so that they all line up at the top. And then we also want to center left to right. Yeah, there we go. We want to center them left to right so that the margins here are the same. I don't much care that this map is wider than this map because I do want a wider view of the whole US than I do of New York City. So that is okay. I do, however, want to make sure that these have the same or are lined up on the bottom. So I'll zoom in a bit by just scrolling up. And I'm just gonna make sure these are lined up. Okay, and they are, so we're good now. So now that I've got those, I'm gonna add my second two cities. So I'm going to, or I guess my second and third cities, sorry. We're gonna add Los Angeles and we're gonna add Chicago. So we'll start with Chicago. So we'll do the same thing we did for New York. Go to Chicago, Illinois. Again, Chicago is much more, we don't really need this whole white space over here, so we can kind of move our map over here. Once we've got a good image of what we actually want in the layout, go to the window, choose layout. Once again, place map or data view in layout. Again, we can use our alignment tools so we don't have to get this exact, but it is just easier if I get it close. There we go. I'll add that. So there's Chicago. Gonna once again delete the legend. And then Los Angeles will go here. And Los Angeles is much more horizontal. So it helps that I left that larger space for this. Like I mentioned, we don't have to get it exact, but it does help. Saves me work later. There we go. Okay. So there are my 4 maps, and I do want to keep this legend, and I'm going to put it right here in this white space. And I'm going to want to make the fonts a bit larger in this legend because it's a bit hard to see right now. So I'm going to right click on it and choose properties. I'm going to go to the contents tab, or sorry, the fonts tab, and I'm just going to make all the font sizes a bit bigger. This is going to make the entire legend larger. So we'll do a title of 24, subtitles of 20, and the individual items can have 16-point font, and the footnote can be 12. So we see that sizes up the legend quite a bit. If we zoom in the map here, it should be pretty readable. It will look better on the final product than it does in the preview here. This is just for previewing. Okay, and I also want to add a title to this. So to add any title or text, we're going to go to the freehand text tool in the bottom left of my screen. That's also on the drawing toolbar. We're going to click on freehand text. Oops. Click on freehand text. Click where we want the text to go. Again, draw a box. And this is IKEA's, and I guess IKEA should be all caps. And Westfold income maps. Okay, and if we want to, we can click on this and we can once again make sure it's centered left to right. We can use, also, if we wanted to, center it top to bottom, but I don't want to do that. I want to keep it at the top here. So that looks pretty good. If you right click on it and choose properties, you'll see additional options to change things like the font and the sizing. So if you want to set the font size manually, you can. I'm going to change the font to Sequoia. There we go. And I'm going to make sure that's centered again, although it should be. Yeah. And the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to add insets under the map onto our large map so we can see where the cutouts of each of these cities are. Now, in my case, this is kind of obvious because I picked 3 large cities, but this can be really useful for making maps of smaller regions where people may not necessarily know where the individual insets are. So we'll go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to zoom in here, move a bit so I can see the whole map. And I'm going to click on the freehand rectangle tool. We're going to make 3 rectangles, one where New York is, one where Chicago is, and we're going to make one where Los Angeles is. My rectangles are not perfect. They are not exactly in the right locations, and I know that. This is just for example. So now I'm going to right click on these rectangles and choose properties. I'm going to make the border width 5 for each of them because I want them to stand out, and I'm going to change the border color to be a different border color for each one. So we'll do blue for New York. We will do orange for Chicago. And we do red for Los Angeles. Let's actually do more of a maroon. I don't want it to be too similar to the orange that we have. There we go. So now that we have all those, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the borders of each of these maps to correspond to those colored rectangles that I just drew. So I'm going to make the border of the New York map blue. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to right click on the New York map and choose properties. Make sure display a border is checked. Click on border style. We're going to set the width to a little bit larger. It doesn't need to be 5, but it should be a bit larger so people notice it. Make it blue. And we're going to do the same thing with Chicago and Los Angeles here. So again, right click, properties, border style. Make it a 3. So we'll do 3 again. Right click, properties, border style, width 3, color. I'll choose that same maroon that I chose before. There we go. The last thing that I may need to do, although I don't need to do it here, is reordering the items on the layout. So if, for example, I needed to make sure that the legend was always in front of this map, because we want to make sure that the legend is displaying on top of the maps. We can right click on the legend and choose pull to front, and that'll make sure it's always at the front. This is useful for things like the legend and these shapes because I'm going to always want these on top of the maps. I never want them to be behind the maps. And so just pulling them to the front can be useful and can reduce the chance of errors later. Other than that, once we are done, we can print this with File, Print. I'm printing to a PDF writer, so I should be prompted to save in a second. And my map is fairly large here, so it's going to have to generate a fairly large PDF. So you can go ahead and start asking questions if you have any now. This will take a minute to export. This is the last thing we're going to do in this instructional portion. So. Oh, there it is. So these are just my PDF writer options. If you have a different PDF writer, you'll probably see different options here. Go ahead and save this to my desktop. It should open when it's finished. Again, any questions you have, feel free to ask them, anything about exports or layouts or anything of that sort. There we go. So here's my finished product. You can see that those shapes are a bit more enunciated on the finished product, and we can see the legend a bit better. And I really hope my Adobe does not crash here. Okay, cool. So we can see the legend looks pretty good on the finished product. And if we want to save this and keep the layout in the workspace, we just choose File, Save Workspace, and it'll save everything together.